This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Tonight, the season premiere of Unsolved Mysteries. December 26, 1980. A U.S. Air Force security patrol told of seeing a mysterious unearthly visitor near their air base in England. During the next 2 nights, a rash of sightings astounded even the most skeptical military men. For years, these sightings were cloaked in secrecy until tonight, for the first time, former Air Force personnel go on camera to tell of a close encounter with what they believe were UFOs. Shane Stewart and Sally McNally of San Angelo, Texas, were typical teenagers until they became involved with a bizarre underground cult. On July 4th, 1988, Shane and Sally mysteriously disappeared. 4 months later, their bodies were finally discovered. Both had been murdered. When Carla Downing was 16, she lost her mother in an automobile accident. 25 years later, after her father passed away, Carla would discover a surprising secret hidden in her tangled family history. The woman she knew as her mother was not her mother after all. Join me for these fascinating new stories on the season premiere of Unsolved Mysteries. The 81st Tactical Fighter Wing of the United States Air Force operates out of southeast England. In a unique arrangement, the wing is housed on twin bases, Woodbridge and Bentwaters. The 2 air bases border a 3-mile expanse of farmland and woods known as Rendlesham Forest. In 1980, Rendlesham was a site of one of the most extraordinary and least publicized events in modern military history. Around 2 a.m. on December 26th, Airman First Class John Burroughs and his partner, both assigned to Woodbridge Base Security, were on routine patrol along the base perimeter.
Hey, what the hell's that over there?
Geez, I don't know. What the hell is that?
I don't know. I've never seen anything like it before.
It's out in the middle of the woods. Now, come on, let's go back to this guard station, call the sergeant, see what he wants to do.
All right.
There was definitely something out in the woods. It seemed like to me like a massive light show. I'm thinking, who would come out in the middle of the woods outside an Air Force base and make a Christmas display? I was nervous, he was nervous. We didn't know what to expect, and we decided at that point in time we better get back and let somebody know what's going on in case something did happen.
Burroughs notified his immediate superior from a nearby sentry post.
Yeah, we got some kind of weird activity in the woods off the base.
Hey, John.
Yeah, sure, I can see him from here. It's still going on. Yeah, look, it's some kind of weird lights in the trees. I don't know, they're moving all up and down.
Almost simultaneously, another security patrol arrived. They verified the presence of the odd lights.
All right, hold on. He wants 3 men to go down off base. You coming with us?
Nope.
All right, look, we'll stay in radio contact. Going off base, leave your weapons.
Burroughs and the 2nd Security Team were sent off base to investigate. They were ordered to leave their weapons behind because they were moving out of American jurisdiction.
We were intrigued, but we were also very nervous. We didn't know what we were getting into. We started in on foot towards the lights. At the same time, we could hear the animals were very upset. You could hear a lot of ruckus.
He's going around us.
At that point, we got a radio transmission They had just gotten contact from Heathrow Tower in London that an object had been seen over our base and it had disappeared on radar.
Setting? I can't tell.
All of a sudden in the clearing there was an object. It had a bank of blue lights on it and it was sitting there like strobing. It was unbelievable. We all hit the ground and it went up into the trees. When it was happening, everything seemed to go slower. We seemed to be in like a, I wouldn't say a time warp, but like everything appeared to be happening slower to us and everything felt different. But when it disappeared, it was like everything was normal again. The perception of the ground, the air, the sky, the stars, the whole 9 yards were different.
Where'd it go?
For more than 2 hours, the three men played an eerie game of cat and mouse with a mysterious craft. It appeared almost to toy with them.
It was off the ground and the horizon above the trees. And it always stayed out in the distance and horizon. Sometimes it appeared to get closer and we were going to get close to it again and then we never did.
The events of that December night set in motion a chain reaction that would eventually result in the best documented sighting of a UFO in American military history. The United States Air Force has no official comment on the entire incident, but tonight the military personnel who actually witnessed the events will appear on camera for the first time. Just 5 hours after the sighting, John Burroughs reported to his shift commander.
At ease. Spit it out. What did you see?
Well, sir, after we received permission to continue into the woods, we
saw some lights, sir. Red ones, some white ones.
And, well, sir, they, flew up into the trees.
He basically said, gentlemen, you saw something. Heathrow Tower confirms that you saw something. And now let's go out into the area and see if we can find any physical proof of what happened. I was hoping when I got out there that basically I would see nothing. There would be no telltale evidence that possibly something happened. That would make it easier for me. Because if there's nothing proving that something happened to me, you can just kind of check it off. But when you get out there and you find damage to the trees, depressions in the ground and stuff, that makes it even more unexplainable.
We came up through the woods to this point right about here. I see. We saw it hovering.
Later that same day, Burroughs rendezvoused with a British police officer. Together, they explored the site where Burroughs had seen the strange object.
We were watching it for about 20 minutes. See this?
Indeed, there were circular impressions in the earth directly below the spot where the craft had appeared to hover.
What could have made that?
It was more of a mystery.
See over here?
Because when I first saw it, I didn't perceive it as something sitting on the ground with a tripod, like a tripod type thing. Now all of a sudden there's physical proof showing that something sat down in that area.
3.4 meters.
The British police officer dismissed the circles as a marks of burrowing forest animals. Nevertheless, he did order his men to measure the distance between the circles.
3.4 here, too.
Surprisingly, the three circles were exactly the same distance apart and formed a perfect equilateral triangle.
3.4 as well.
Early the next morning, Colonel Charles HALT, Deputy Base Commander, arrived at Woodbridge Security Headquarters. Rumor of the UFO sighting had spread like wildfire.
What's going on?
Colonel, you're not going to believe this, but Burroughs and Peniston were running around the woods last night chasing after UFOs.
Yeah, UFOs, what are you talking about?
Listen, I thought they were yanking me, but the guys saw something. They thought an aircraft went down, so they went and looked. There were these lights in the woods.
Why isn't that in the blotter?
The lieutenant didn't want me to put that in, sir.
Is anybody sure it wasn't an aircraft that went down?
No, sir.
Then put it in the blotter.
Yes, sir.
I was very skeptical. I found what had allegedly taken place hard to believe, and I was really going to debunk it, quite frankly. And as events unfolded, I became more and more concerned that there may be something to this. I kept telling myself that there had to be some type of an explanation for it, but I certainly couldn't find one, and even to this day, I can't explain what happened.
Straight back, straight back!
That evening, unusual lights were spotted once again. In response, the base commander ordered large mobile floodlights, devices commonly known as light-alls, to be set up in the woods.
Good! All right, move it out!
At 9:30 p.m., Colonel HALT received word that the light-alls were inexplicably malfunctioning.
I don't know, sir. Craziest damn things I've ever seen. Animals in the forest are acting weird. Starlight scope's going bad, and radios ain't working, and light-alls ain't coming up.
Let's get out there and see what we got.
All right, sir.
This is Colonel HALT to command. We're going out to Rendlesham.
During the next 6 hours, Colonel Charles HALT will be swept up in an unbelievable series of events, which would prove to be one of the most elaborate encounters of the UFO ever documented. When we return, the details of Colonel HALT's odyssey. In 1980, just after Christmas, strange lights appeared in the forest near 2 American air bases in southeast England. Security at both bases sprang into action. Large portable floodlights, like this one, commonly known as light-alls, are positioned in the woods. The security police hoped to catch another glimpse of the glowing object sighted 2 nights earlier. But the light-alls mysteriously malfunctioned. Base security was immediately ordered to dispatch a second set of light-alls. Simultaneously, Colonel Charles HALT, deputy commander of both bases, put together a special investigative team.
I called the on-duty or standby man in disaster preparedness and had him get his camera, he was a professional photographer, and calibrate several radioac instruments to take along, and we were going to go debunk this.
By the time Colonel HALT arrived at the site, the second set of light-alls was also malfunctioning.
What's going on, Sergeant?
Colonel, we're having a little problem.
Some of the vehicles weren't working properly, and radio transmissions were limited at best.
Breaking up. Okay, Lieutenant, where'd you see that light?
It's right through there, sir.
Armed with a Geiger counter, a starlight scope to enhance night vision, and a tape recorder to record his first impressions, Colonel HALT led his team into the woods.
Here, sir. Let's go. Follow me, sir.
What you are about to see is based on verbatim transcripts of the tape made that night.
We're in the center of a triangle.
It didn't take us long to find what I believe was a landing site of some sort. The trees had branches broken off.
One of the members of Colonel HALT's team was Sergeant Robert Ball.
As we looked up, and we had high-power flashlights with us, and we could see branches up to 1 inch, 2 inches in diameter, which had either been knocked completely off or had been bent downward. And it was clean up to the top of the trees.
We looked at the area through the starlight scope, and it did, I'll have to admit, have a dull glow that I couldn't explain.
Over here.
So we got the radioac instruments out, and we're taking readings.
4 clicks,
And while we were doing this, the police lieutenant said, "Look, over there."
Colonel!
Yes, sir. And it was a strange glowing object that appeared to be 100, 200 meters away. I couldn't explain
Lights
it.
out, everybody.
It was avoiding the pine trees, zigzagging around them. It kind of winked at us.
Strangest thing I've ever seen, sir. Strange. Wow. It looks like an eye winking at you.
It approached us at one time. We just stood there in awe. Watched it probably for a minute or two, maybe a little more.
Finally, the object began to move away. Colonel HALT and his men followed.
As we were pursuing this glowing object through the woods, we noticed a farmhouse directly in front of us.
We've got a reading of 2 on the counter that's much higher than background radiation.
The farmhouse appeared to be glowing very brightly, as though it were on fire.
I reckon there's somebody in there, sir.
I don't know, Lieutenant.
The object then broke into 5 white objects and disappeared.
Let's go.
And there was a very strange feeling in the air. It made your hair bristle. It was sort of like static electricity. You just had a very unusual feeling. And I don't think it was all psychological. I think there was something physiological about it. There was something to it. I don't know what it was. We ventured on toward the coast, trying to decide what to do next.
There.
We looked to the north, and about 30 degrees off the horizon, there were 3 objects in the sky. They started moving rapidly about in sharp angular movements, as though they were exercising some type of formation or search pattern. I'm not really sure what it was.
We now have multiple sightings of up to 3 objects of a similar
I think there was some type of guiding force behind these objects.
red flash.
Whether it was trying to communicate with us, whether it was trying to warn us, or whether it was trying to do something to us, I don't know.
To me, it looked like a grid search, like they were boxing off an area and looking for something. And that was the thought that hit me right away and has stayed with me over the years. It looked like a search pattern.
Colonel HALT's initial skepticism eroded with each passing minute and each bizarre sighting.
There's definitely something up there. Hey, we've got an object.
We could very clearly see it. It sort of danced about in the sky, and it sent down beams of light. I noticed other beams of light coming down from the same object, following different places on the base. My boss was standing in his front yard at Woodbridge, and he could see the beams of light falling down. And the people in the weapons storage area and several other places on the base also reported the lights.
I woke up about 3:34 in the morning, and for whatever reason, I felt like maybe something had happened again. I don't know why. I just woke up and felt like something had came back. Don't ask me why. It just was a gut feeling. So I went ahead and got up and went up to the base. All of a sudden, a couple of like blue, transparent type lights appeared in the sky. They were all of a sudden in the horizon, and one of them broke towards us. The only time the light owls were working as far as came on and off when I saw them were when the light passed them. And I have no idea what caused the light owls to come on and off other than the fact that the blue light, as it passed, the light owls came on.
At virtually the same moment, 300 yards away, Colonel HALT's investigation was about to culminate in a remarkable close encounter.
Hey, here.
The object was coming at us at a very high rate of speed. One of these beams of light fell very, very close to us, sort of a pencil beam of light.
Down from the object to the ground near our feet. Like, this is unreal.
The extraordinary visitor never returned.
Let's go.
I drafted a memo, sent a copy to London, and it was swallowed up. It became very quiet.
This is a copy of Colonel HALT's memo. It was submitted to British military authorities who never acted on it. The United States Air Force did not acknowledge that the episode had occurred. Then in 1983, a private citizen invoked the Freedom of Information Act, and HALT's memo was released. Nevertheless, many remain unconvinced.
Spacecraft from another world, although not impossible, is extraordinary.
James McGahey is an astronomer and noted UFO skeptic who is director of 2 private observatories.
And the burden of proof for any event that is extraordinary is upon those making the claim, not upon those who look at it from a skeptical perspective. Where is the evidence? Show me the evidence. And that's what science is all about. On the first night, the night of 26 December 1980, at about 3 o'clock that morning, a bright fireball, which is a very bright meteor, came into the Earth's atmosphere. And this is unquestionably what John Burroughs saw that night.
I've seen meteor showers come down before. It wasn't a meteor falling out of the sky, and it went up, not down. Meteors fall from the sky. They don't go back up into the sky.
A meteor is not going to go up, go back and forth, and maintain position in the sky for a long period of time. A meteor is not going to send beams of light down.
I think both of them are being honest as to what their perceptions are, but human perception is very, very easily fooled. And I think when they went out there to the woods, everybody was out there expecting to see a UFO. With that preconceived notion, the way you view things can be greatly influenced.
There's definitely something up there.
McGahey believes that the glowing red light Colonel HALT saw that night was simply reflections from the revolving beam of a nearby lighthouse.
Moving away from us, moving fast.
There are too many unrelated things. If it were just a reflection, how does one explain two different sightings in two different places in the sky? How does one explain the object moving through the forest? How does one explain the sighting in the forest by the 3 airmen? There are just too many things. I have a lot of unresolved questions that I'm not sure I'll ever have answered. I've had people suggest all sorts of things, everything from I've seen the second coming of Christ to the devil's after us. I can't explain it. I really can't. I know it was beyond the realm of anything that we experience in ordinary life.
According to Colonel HALT, 2 other unconfirmed sightings have been reported in the vicinity of Woodbridge Air Base. The first in January of 1981, the second 9 months later. In the initial sightings of 1980, at least 15 men, all of them U.S. Air Force personnel, witnessed the strange lights and objects firsthand. The Air Force continues to have no official comment on the entire series of events. Next, the murder of 2 teenage sweethearts. Some say they were the victims of a bizarre cult.
Shane was a very lively, energetic kid. To me, he was like Beaver Cleaver, the all-around boy, always having fun, always making sure that everybody else had fun. He had a lot of dreams, a lot of goals, and he was a very lovable kid. When Shane and Sally met, it was just like 2 people clicked on. There was a bond there that was almost inseparable. It was like the 2 kids were made for each other.
Sally loved people. She would do anything for a friend. Sally tried hard to please people. She wanted people to like her. She wanted people to respond to her and love her.
Shane Stewart and Sally McNally grew up around San Angelo, Texas, a peaceful, bucolic ranching community. But like so many other small towns, there was more to San Angelo than meets the eye. Independence Day 1988 was a reunion of sorts for Shane and Sally. Each had recently returned to town, and it was their first date in more than 4 months. It was also the last time they would ever be seen. The next morning, a ranger discovered Shane's car abandoned near O.C. Fisher Lake. Fast food wrappers lay strewn across the front seat. The keys were on the dashboard. Shane and Sally were nowhere to be found.
Marshal Stewart felt his son would not leave his car unlocked with the keys in it and just merely walk off. However, there were no signs of a struggle, and so consequently we looked at it at first from the standpoint of 2 kids ran off and got married.
Knowing how much he loved that car, that he wouldn't leave it, I was very, very concerned that something tragic had happened.
Send me a justice of the peace to this location.
4 months later, 2 skeletons were found near Twin Buttes Lake, 17 miles from where Shane's car was abandoned. Marshal Stewart was monitoring his police scanner and immediately rushed to the scene.
I got out of the pickup and walked over to the area. Gut feeling is apparent. I knew they had found Shane.
Hi, Marshal.
Hello, Liz. How are you?
Marshal, how you doing?
Y'all find Shane's body?
Yeah, we sure did, and it's pretty gruesome in there.
I want to see him.
Well, we just want to let you know that there's not a whole lot left.
I want to see him.
Okay, let's go with
you. It was Shane, dressed exactly like he'd left the house that night. And I knelt down beside him and told him that I had found him and we would take him home.
The forces of nature had washed away all forensic clues, but detectives were able to determine that both victims had been killed by shotgun blasts. The discovery of Shane and Sally's bodies was a culmination of a 4-month search which had introduced their parents to a strange and frightening subculture. Marshall Stewart and Pat Wade discovered that their children were engaged in activities which many believed were linked to a satanic cult. In Sally's case, it appeared to be part of a desperate search for acceptance in the wake of a painful and troubled childhood.
I married and had Sally when I was very young. So Sally and I spent a lot of our time growing up together. We were like sisters when she was small. And as Sally became a teenager, she became more and more rebellious. And I had less and less role in her life.
I don't think I ever heard her call her mother mother. It was always Pat. She was real resentful towards the fact that her dad wasn't around. And she blamed it on Pat a lot when we were kids.
Sally began sneaking out late at night, and on one occasion, Pat stayed up to confront her.
Sally.
Pat.
Where have you been?
You scared me.
Scared you? I've been waiting here all night.
I just went out for a walk.
Sally, you snuck through the window.
So what?
So I've been worried about you.
Look, you don't know anything about this, okay? So just leave me alone.
That was the only explanation she would give me. So I called one friend of Sally's. The boy's mother answered the phone, and she told me that the kids were mixed up in Satan worship. And she said that a group of kids had been at her house one night and said they had a demon in a bottle.
Sally really got to a point to where she thought, nobody loves me. These people come along and they say, okay, we'll give you that love, we'll give you that companionship that you need. You just come with us and do what we ask.
You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm glad I'm here.
Sally began to attend ritualistic parties on a regular basis. One evening, she invited Helen to join her.
And she said,
It's Ouija time.
Turn out the lights.
I'm gonna do this. You want to? No, thanks.
I need some hands on the oracle. In the name of our Father, the great Satan, we humbly bow to you now and turn over our will to your great wisdom. Spirit of the oracle, we call on you tonight to guide us.
Sally?
Sally went into a trance,
Sally, are you all right?
and it really scared me.
What? I'm leaving. Okay.
Half of me said, Sally's pulling a stunt, just ignore it. And half of me said, well, maybe they're kind of having fun.
In the fall of 1987, Sally began dating Shane Stewart. She introduced him to her new friends. According to Shane's father, his behavior began to change as well.
Come on, boy. Come on, what's wrong with you?
Shane started getting into fights.
Come on.
One day, Shane's getting the better of this guy. His two friends jumped in, and then he was thrown into the river. So I told him, I said, you should have learned a lesson. One, not to fight, and two, be aware of where you are, what you're doing, because people can always gang up on you.
In March of 1988, Sally called Sheriff's Deputy Larry Counts. She and Shane had grown disillusioned when some members of the cult began engaging in criminal activities.
She and her boyfriend, Shane, were members of this group, and they were trying to get away from it. She said there was a lot of drugs involved. There was a lot of group sex. She also expressed that she had a weapon that had been given to her by another member of the cult. And when he gave it to her, he told her and Shane that the gun had been used in a murder robbery.
2 months earlier, Shane and Sally had moved in together. They agreed to meet with Deputy Counts in their apartment to hand over the gun.
Shane, he's here.
Okay.
He's trying to find the gun.
Okay. Well, during this meeting, when I first met them face to face, You really think that they were making this stuff up, but they seemed sincere.
This is the gun that guy gave us that I told you about.
Does he have any other weapons?
Yeah, he's got a whole toolbox full of guns. I mean, it's scary because you know these guys are crazy.
After they gave me this weapon and we did some checking on it, it turned out to be a stolen gun. Then their story became a little bit more credible.
He's not going to find out about this, is he? I can't promise you anything, but I will do my best. Well, I appreciate it. Okay.
They did express fears that they might be she and her boyfriend might be in some danger because it's a very secretive type group, and they knew the ends, they knew the secrets, and when they broke away, they realized that they were in some danger.
6 weeks later, Shane and Sally moved out of their apartment and left town separately. But by early summer, both returned to San Angelo.
Sally, what's wrong?
I've got a problem.
What kind of problem?
I think they're gonna try to kill me.
2 weeks prior to her disappearance, Sally made a desperate telephone call to Helen.
I said, nobody's gonna come and shoot you. I said, what did you do? She said, well, I really can't tell you.
I gotta go. All right. Bye.
She just tended to exaggerate things, so I really didn't think much of it. And I really didn't think to call Pat and say, Pat, Sally's in trouble, there's something wrong. I mean, I didn't think anything about it.
Shane, it's for you. On July the 3rd, around noon, we received a phone call. And there was a man on the phone asking for Shane. And as I walked away, I heard Shane mention money.
I'll have the money for you tomorrow. Just lighten up, will you? Goodbye.
And so when Shane came out of the room, I asked him, I said, is there a problem? And he said, no. I told him if there was a problem, I was his dad, and I could help him handle it. And he said, no. He said, everything's fine. He said, I've taken care of it.
Thanks, Dad.
On July the 4th, Shane told me that he was going to go out and watch the fireworks. So I gave Shane a hug, told him that I loved him, take care of himself, and don't get in a bind. And he said, no problem. He said he'd see me later, and left the house. And that was the last time I saw him alive.
Police have reconstructed the events which preceded the disappearance. At 9 p.m., Shane and Sally watched the annual fireworks display at Lake Nasworthy. 4 hours later, a fisherman anchored offshore spotted them at O.C. Fisher Lake 6 miles away. He could see the young couple standing by a car. Then he saw a pickup truck approach.
No, we're not going to come with you. Hey, listen, I said we're not into that anymore, okay? So just leave us alone.
I heard them talking about she didn't want to be with them people no more. I listened a little bit more, and they continued arguing at first, and then I got to thinking, well, there's just a bunch of kids out there drinking, partying. And I turned my boat around and I left.
It was the last time anyone saw Shane Stewart and Sally McNally alive. Marshal Stewart refused to believe that the children had run away. For 4 months, he scoured the lake area and began questioning people whom he believed might know something about his son's disappearance. One of the youths he talked to was allegedly involved in the cult.
Hi, I'm Shane's dad. Do you remember me?
Mr. Stewart.
Shane told me if he and his friend ever got together, there was going to be bad trouble. He said, we're enemies. We hate each other. If there's ever a confrontation, he said, there's really going to be a fight. What's wrong with your face? It looks like you've been in a fight.
It's just a cut. I ain't been in no fight.
Okay.
Good luck.
And I walked away from the door, convinced he had confronted Shane somewhere and there had been a fight, and he just wasn't telling me the truth. I felt like Shane and Sally had gone to the lake and were probably sitting out there on the table listening to music and been approached by probably some of their friends or enemies.
We don't have any suspects from the standpoint of something that we could bring to the grand jury. We have investigated it with the people that have been referred to us by as having been in the cult activity, and consequently they are suspects until we solve the murder.
Most of my life, I was fearful of dying and leaving Sally before she was grown. And then for the tables to be turned and for Sally to leave me. This is the worst nightmare that any parent can have. And it never goes away.
There's no words to describe what you feel when you find your child murdered. Nothing that you can do to console them during their last hours. These people need to be caught and brought in and punished for what they've done, and to prevent something like this from happening again. I'd like to sit through the trial and make sure that justice has been served.
When Sally's body was discovered, a fortune from a Chinese cookie was found in her pocket. It read, "You'll always be surrounded by friends." Authorities believe that Shane Stewart and Sally McNally were murdered by their friends as a direct result of their cult activities. Police are convinced that there were witnesses to the crime who were afraid to come forward. If you have any information, please contact the Tom Green County Sheriff's Department in San Angelo, Texas. When we return, a woman needs your help to find her real mother, whom she has met only once. Imagine growing up as an outsider in your own home, feeling somehow separate from your family. This is how a young woman named Carla Downing felt her entire life. Carla's feelings of alienation were compounded by the tragic death of her mother when Carla was just 16. In June of 1965, shortly after her mother's death, Carla and her younger brother went to live with her grandparents in Alexandria, Virginia. Carla's father was in the Army and stationed overseas.
Shortly after my mother's funeral, a woman came to my grandmother's house where I was living. You know, at that time I was 16. I had a little bit of money in my pocket. My grandmother was going to turn me loose that day to go do some shopping.
I'm going to give you $20.
Ah.
I want you to get me a quart of milk, and you can use the rest for a dress or anything else you like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carla.
Oh, Carla. This is Mary. Mary was a friend of your mom's in high school.
Hi. You look very familiar.
I saw you when you were just a little baby. And I do remember thinking, well, gosh, this woman needs to sit down. You know, she just looked kind of, I don't know, shook up or something. And, you know, I just kind of assumed that it was over my mother's death. And looking back, you know, I can remember what she wore, where she sat, what I was doing at the time, what I had on. You know, just it did come back to me. And I really wished I would have paid more attention at that moment.
Carla was born in December 1948. Her father, Chester Libby, was an Army sergeant. Her mother, Mildred, a secretary. In 1951, Carla's brother, Ronnie, was born. But within a few short years, Carla began to feel that she somehow didn't fit in.
The whole time I was growing up, I always knew that, you know, there was just something not right, mainly because of the difference between my brother and I. He had blue eyes and blonde hair, and it was curly, and, you know, I had straight, dark hair, dark eyes, olive complexion. You know, it was just obvious to me, even, that we just weren't alike.
Carla kept her troubling suspicions to herself. After the death of her mother, Carla's father moved back to the U.S. and remarried. Carla graduated from high school, married, and had a son. But even as a grown woman, Carla never stopped feeling out of place in her own family. In 1990, Carla's father died, and she traveled to Arlington, Virginia for his funeral.
Oh, wait a minute. Bob, would you take that, please?
Oh, sure will.
Honey, I've got something in the trunk of the car I want you to have.
Okay.
Now, Carla, this belonged to your dad, and he wanted you to have it. All his military papers are in here, and a few more.
When I got the briefcase, I just wanted to go over each and every paper, you know, and remember all of the different places that we lived together and that sort of thing. And in the back of my mind, I knew there was something I was looking for. I just knew there was something in there.
That night, when she was finally alone, Carla began to sift through the contents of her father's briefcase. 2 documents in particular caught her attention. The first, dated November 1945, listed Carla's father as married. The second document, filed in November 1948, listed him as divorced. Carla was shocked to find that her father had been married before he met her mother and had been divorced just 1 month prior to Carla's own birth. The discrepancy between the 2 documents heightened all of Carla's suspicions from childhood.
Well, that's good. Listen, the reason I'm calling, do you know anything about Daddy being married before?
2 days later, Carla called her Uncle Norman, her father's only living brother. She asked him to tell her the truth, and a surprising saga began to emerge.
It shows him being married with 2 dependents. Norman made me feel really good because I got my initial straight answer from him. Somebody finally said, "No, you aren't his daughter. You were already there when he met your mother." So at that point, I felt a sense of relief because at least I knew something. I had a direction. Hello?
Hi, Carla. This is Ronnie. How you doing, honey?
I'm doing
An hour later, Carla's brother Ronnie called with more unsettling
Dad
news.
were married once before?
Well, I knew that Dad was married before, you know, because of the papers and what Uncle Norman told me.
Well, I found out from Uncle Ed that Mom was married also.
Well, then that would mean I was probably her daughter by a previous marriage then, right?
Well, here's the thing. I noticed something peculiar on my birth certificate a couple of years ago, and I looked at it again last night, and it states the number of children born to Mom before me, if any, and it lists this figure as none.
If his birth certificate is correct, that means that he and I are not brother and sister. So now I have a father who wasn't my father, a brother who isn't my brother, and I'm not real sure about my mother at this point.
Carla Downing's tangled family history finally began to unravel. Carla learned from her uncles that her mother, Mildred, had suffered a series of miscarriages during her first marriage. In 1948, Mildred met a recent immigrant named Mary, who was pregnant and unmarried. In that time and place, Mary knew that she would be unable to keep her baby. According to Mildred's brothers, the 2 women concocted a scheme to switch ID cards in the hospital.
Yes. What's her name? Her name is Mildred Graham. She doesn't speak any English.
In doing so, Mildred would be listed on the birth certificate as a child's mother.
Mildred Cart.
From the very beginning, even as a kid, because I was about 12 when I think this occurred, I always had the feeling that, you know, that Carla really should know. I don't know why I felt that way, even at that age, but I almost had a sense that someday it was going to come out.
She's beautiful.
Beautiful.
May I hold her?
It's my thinking that this must have really been hard on Mary because, you know, if that time she felt like she could not have a child for whatever reason, I mean, she was concerned enough that she went to this extreme with my mother to see that I was in a good family. I just have this need to find Mary. I want to be in the same room with someone I resemble. I want my mother. I want somebody that I've been looking for a long time.
On the night of our broadcast, Carla Downing's prayers are finally answered. Her natural mother, Mary Maxwell, was still very much alive and very anxious to see her daughter. Carla was also overjoyed to discover she had 2 half-sisters. 8 days later, Carla traveled from her home in Tennessee to Maryland, where she was finally reunited with her mother.
You know, I seen it come. I knew it was her. I couldn't believe it. And all I could say was, Carla, oh, Carla. And I ran out the door, and she almost fell out the car, I think. And we couldn't do nothing else but hold each other and cry.
When I saw her for the first time, I just can't describe that feeling. It's home at last.
Oh, golly.
I can breathe again. It's just the happiest moment in my whole life, you know. Just the happiest moment in my whole life.
This is your grandfather and your grandmother, and this is your grandfather and grandmother when they got married. It's like a miracle. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it for the longest time. I said, this is not happening to us. It only happens to other people that they find somebody they're looking for, not us. But yet it happened to us.
When I found out that my mom was alive and healthy and okay, that was just the best news in the world. But then the extra bonus was I have 2 sisters and a nephew. So it's a happy ending. It's a fairy tale come true.
On our next Unsolved Mysteries, history records that 26-year-old John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of President Abraham Lincoln, was killed by Union troops in 1865. Now some historians claim that Booth actually managed to escape and flee to freedom. While researching this story, we were surprised to discover that even the Encyclopedia Britannica is not sure of what happened to John Wilkes Booth. Join me for this fascinating and controversial journey into the past next time on Unsolved Mysteries.
Thank you.